Hi all. There's a little confusion with Zoom and Teams, so I'm just sending a couple people the invite here. So hang on just a few minutes. Yeah. The Zoom invite is sending you to Teams.
Hey guys, a little technical difficulty on the this end of the spectrum here. Oh, good to see you. Hope everybody's having a fine day, a fine week. I'll give it another 2 minutes before we get it kicked off, and then we can get on with the agenda.
Mike, do you want me to put the public comment
Yes.
thing back up?
Yep, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. We got you in the right meeting, Judge. I don't know why it kicked us over to Teams, but it did it twice. So
thanks, Karen.
You're welcome. Sorry about that.
okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know everybody's pretty busy. So welcome to January 11th Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council meeting. I'll read from the script here. Today, as with every meeting, we start off with public comment for 15 minutes. As a reminder, there's a 3-minute limit per individual. Speakers should address the matters which are within the powers of the duties of the SRLJC members. Speakers should also identify themselves and address the chair. Council members were not engaged in the dialogue. If you would like to comment and have not done so already, send a chat message to the administrative assistant, Karen Westberg. And then she will give you your speaker number and announce you when it's your turn to speak. So we'll pause to see if anybody wants to have any public comment. Karen, have you had any requests on your side?
I have not.
Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes to see if we have anyone that wants to talk. And if somebody joins afterwards, after the 15 minutes, then we'll figure out what we're going to do for that part of it.
Okay.
Also, Karen, have you already done the roll call? Identified everybody that's here?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I'm working on it as I'm looking at people on here. So
We'll
I
give you
don't-
just a minute. Yeah, we'll give you a minute to catch up on that.
let me see. I don't see Judge Girl. I see Laura. I don't see Randy Unfred. I think John Haley is here. John, are you here?
John Haley's here, yeah.
Okay. Chief Simmons, I don't see.
Okay.
And Judge McKay.
Okay.
I see Tori. Cheryl. Cheryl needs to accept the invitation to be a panelist. I think she did now. Okay. So I think we're just missing those few, Judge McKay, Chief Simmons,
Okay,
Randy Unfred, and Judge Girl.
okay. Have you received any requests to make public comment either by email or by, some other messaging?
Sorry, no, I haven't.
Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and move forward and get on conduct business. First off, so we'll start off with the December 4th minutes. You should have already received a copy of them, and I just need a motion to approve the minutes to move forward with.
I'll move let the minutes be approved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Justin is the second. Having a motion and a second, we'll move forward to the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
And aye. Okay.
I'll abstain.
Any comment on the minutes? Discussion? No? Okay.
I'll abstain from voting since I wasn't present.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so last meeting we talked and we had an opportunity to talk about what this group is tasked to do, the kind of the body of the work that goes along with it. And there's kind of two separate things that are occurring. One is the MacArthur Foundation, and it's the MacArthur work is dedicated to that portion. And there's a core group that meets regularly to work on the function of the MacArthur grant money. It's separate from this body of the work. This by RCW is about controlling jail population and just working with the justice system to make improvements. As you guys all know, or you're not familiar with the blueprint reform, and if you're not, I can help bring you up to speed on that. But I think everybody's pretty much seen the document, looked at the document. And what it was meant to do was make recommendations about the justice system, and it touches all branches, really. It's if you have the list in front of you, you can see that it does a pretty thorough job. It was produced by 2 retired judges or 1 retired judge and two attorneys. And the body of work was pretty comprehensive. They met with a lot of you that are here today, as well as several others. And then at the end of it, they pulled this together for the blueprint of reform. That was it was brought before the Board of County Commissioners. They adopted it as something we'd like to move forward with. And so it was meant to have been worked on all along. And I think under the last composition of the SRLJC, we didn't really focus on it. And they really didn't have somebody kind of in my role that is looking at the entire system and trying to do justice improvements across the board and not just in one, particular discipline. So since then, they produced a report card, and the status report is kind of like it's 2.0. It has some of the recommendations that are still occurring and some of the things that have already were already put in place. They have been worked on by their various departments. So what I'm proposing to you today, and I did have an opportunity to speak with Justin Bingham, the vice chair, just kind of on the strategy. And I think that this body of really needs to review the blueprint reform in the particular areas that they are. And I think that what we either need to do is look to see if there's opportunity in these particular areas of recommendations, or some we need to dismiss, some that's going to be a long-term project, and some that may have a spin-off, smaller work groups to work on some of these recommendations. So there really isn't a great way to go into this because as you guys see, there's a tremendous amount on this list right here of things to go through it. So what I'm kind of looking to you all is how you guys would like to go through this. Take your individual, your individual departments and go back and discuss it with them. Do we want to discuss it as a body and just like strike off the things that aren't going to happen, that some of the things that have happened, and so forth. So I would open it up to the panel now. Justin, do you have something you'd want to bring into as well?
Right, Mike and I talked about this last week about sort of how we could actually get started with the work of this council. And one of the things that we discussed was what we did at the very beginning of the last iteration of the SRLJC. And that's where we had individual departments discuss what they're doing and then have a conversation, a robust conversation about it. Mike suggested that a good place to start would be to look at the blueprint, and Karen was nice enough to give us the CliffsNotes version there, which I really appreciate. And then just each of the departments just explain maybe what they're doing to address these issues, what they've already done. And then some of them are simply not going to work. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, the 3 commissioners that were doing this work don't deal with the day-to-day. And so as I reviewed it, looking at a lot of the integrated IT that they continually talk about, we know is probably not going to happen simply because of the multiple entities that use different systems. But at least we can have that conversation. So I guess the best way to start would be for different organizations or agencies to discuss what they've done, unless this group wants to go in a different direction, because we felt like the best place to start was to address the issues that have been brought up and have been essentially sitting on the table since right before COVID. This report was done right before the pandemic, and it has not been thoroughly vetted or addressed by this body or the last SRLJC. So that was at least our starting point where we thought would be a good place to go. I don't know if others have different opinions.
Yeah, I would just open it up to anybody's suggestions or recommendations, because really, like Justin identified, this has basically just been sitting on a desk since it happened. And I don't think that's, I don't think that it's anyone's particular fault. I just don't think that, we had someone to pull it together and then get it back in front of this group and then start off with it. And plus we had to do a new, composition of the group. So I think that, the first one is the governance in general. I think that what we've done is we've worked our way through all of these. And I think that the very last one, which is 5.15, what they would be looking for is I need to come back with a report card from this group on things that we're working on a regular basis and things that we're going to move forward with to the board, or not the board, the three that prepared this. And so I could come back to them and say, it isn't that we're just poo-pooing these things off or we're not paying attention. We're not going to recognize the hard work that you put into this, and come back with them with answers, solid answers, and say, listen, we looked at this, we reviewed it. We agreed that this either is something that we want to do or something we're just not going to be feasible for us to do. And so that's kind of what I'm bringing up before you guys to look at. So anyone else comments?
I feel like this is a little bit deja vu because it seems like we were just here with the previous group before we made these changes. And there was a vote that went out to all the members to vote on which one of these were feasible and do we want to work on. And so everybody gave their feedback in their vote. So this was discussed. And then I don't remember anything after that.
Okay.
What people, voted to choose to work on. I don't remember if it was the low hanging fruit or what the outcome of that was.
And are you referring to the MacArthur project?
It was after these updates
Okay.
came out, the blueprint updates. The group met, the group at the time met,
Mhm.
and it was sent out to everybody. We had a lot of discussions, and then it was the vote was sent out to vote on which one of these do you think we should choose to
Okay.
focus on.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, can I comment on that?
Mhm.
Probably, Tori, I apologize. Probably that's our oversight because neither Mike or I were present probably at those meetings when Maggie was conducting them. So if the rest of you feel the same way, maybe we could just figure out, I'll go back and look at the minutes and figure out what was said, unless you guys can give us this is what we decided on. You know what I mean? We don't want to rehash things for you, but we also, Mike and I we weren't here. So, okay.
Yeah, and I think that we voted, I know that when Ozzy was there, Ozzy asked for me to put together a list of all the projects that were currently in place and the recommendations for it. And I think, if I recall right, that's what we voted on. But I'll have to go back, Tori, and review the minutes too as well. And I don't know if it was as comprehensive as this, but but I appreciate that comment. Tim, you had your hand up.
Well, I did, but Tori was saying pretty much what I was going to say. I know we had a discussion, I know we had a vote, but I know we also talked about individual departments, looking at the things that pertain to them, so we could whittle down the full discussion, because it's a very extensive list.
Yeah.
We're kind of hoping to whittle it down a bit for a smaller, more reasonable list for the group here to work on.
Okay. Yeah, and if and I guess that's probably the best approach, is for us just to take it back to our departments, look through the list, have the necessary conversations, and then kind of say, these are kind of the areas that we'd like to focus on. And but just realize that I need to, if it's a recommendation of some other one, I would need some comment on, why it's not feasible, or it's already been accomplished a different way, or whatever it is, so that when I report back on my report card, I'll be able to do that part of it. So, Laura.
Yes, well, I actually agree with what you said. I'm also wondering, well, was the vote taken by a different group than exists today? And maybe we should, reassess what we want to work on and what we not with the current group. But I'm also looking at this governance in general, the 5.1. And is there an evidence-based portfolio and risk needs assessment instrument in place? Because I'm unaware.
No, and it's
Oh.
not. Yeah, and so that portion of it, the restructure of the board, there's some committees that need to be spun off of this. And so what I need to do is to review it. And that I was going to say that would probably be my categories 5.1 that I would be addressing, and then coming back and reporting out to the board. The coordinated information system, we all know that, you got Discus, you got Squamish, you've got, Caseman, you've got all these different variety of softwares that we all utilize, but they don't talk to each other. And I think that's a larger problem than a one-year problem. It's going to take a while for us to address that one. So that's, maybe something we put on there, but it's down the road type project. So any other comment? Okay, so what I think I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that,
Hey, Mike,
sir or ma'am,
Cheryl had her hand up, and Katie's got her hand up.
I'm sorry. Katie?
I know before the meeting, I went ahead and at least looked at the prosecutor section, and that's really the only one I paid much attention to. But just in looking at the prosecutor section, it seems somewhat outdated, because I think this is from before COVID. I know a lot of these things have either been accomplished or don't exist anymore. So maybe it might be of some benefit to just do a cursory look at all of these other things and just see the easy ones that we can just mark off as either completed or don't apply anymore, because they're just simply not something that is on our table anymore. I don't know, just a thought, because otherwise it seems like it might be kind of a little bit silly to.
Yeah, to redo it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm just looking for a response. I'm not expecting us to do all of these recommendations. I'm just looking for each of you just to do an evaluation on it. Some of it may, I know that the ECR is on here, and we've talked about the ECR, but there's been some challenges for that. I think what we need to do is just, like I said, go back to our department, just take it a piece at a time, and then identify the areas that you think we could do it with. So.
You think, Mike, that we could ask each of them to send their section and what they, what they have done or what doesn't apply or what they're working on to us?
Well,
so that we can at least have some.
The other thing is it says courts. Well, obviously that's more than one court. And I think that we're going to have to divvy that out between Superior Court and the other two courts too, as well. You know what I'm saying? So as I'm looking at the court part of it. So I think it's going to touch a couple different areas. And then Cheryl, you had your hand up. Are you going to talk about the risk needs tool?
Well, I guess what I was looking at in my folder, I can't believe how time has flown, but I guess it was early 2022 when we were all asked to get with our people and bring forth what our departments thought were priorities. And then, everybody contributed something and a document was created. Those priorities are somewhat different than the blueprint. So I'm not sure if we're talking about those priorities or the blueprint right now. And then I think before we got too far into it, that is when the sheriff at the time opted to move forward with moving supported release. And so it kind of all shifted in that direction. And then we all kind of stopped meeting on a regular basis. And now here we are. So are you asking for my comments about the blueprint for reform recommendations and the report card?
Yeah, what I'm asking for is just to look at your area and look what's applicable to your area, and then just comment off of that. And then if you have that, and I apologize because I do remember, I thought the vote we had taken earlier was on these big projects and which ones we felt but it might have touched into the blueprint or form. I know it didn't go to this extent, but if you could send a copy of that, and Karen, you may have it in your minutes, but if you could send a copy to Karen, we'll get that out to everybody too, because it's something we need to talk about as well.
Because just in regards to now, if you're talking about the blueprint, which is what I kind of understood from Karen's email, to look at our areas and speak to what has been accomplished or what's, gone by the wayside, I can tell you that the recommendation that pretrial services use a functional risk needs assessment that we had throughout the course of the grant implemented the PSA, the public safety assessment. That was used, and the response wasn't necessarily favorable from the courts, or not favorable enough to sustain the funding to continue doing that. And so I think, interestingly, I mean, with this jurisdiction, with pretrial services already providing the first appearance evaluation, the risk tool seemed to kind of take a back seat to the comprehensive information that the court was used to receiving. So that's kind of what happened. We do a needs assessment for the folks that are placed on monitored release, and those are referrals, and their participation is voluntary. So we do that. The 24-hour intake facility, obviously, this department isn't going to have funding to create such a facility or a structure. The trailer over there that was constructed, it never really took off. That wasn't the responsibility of pretrial services, but I guess I would speak to the recommendation that pretrial services needs to operate 24/7. That whole I guess that whole thought is kind of old school. Jurisdictions that have moved forward with that have recognized that unless there's judicial review in the middle of the night or the jail has release authority, why do you need to run a team 24/7 if decisions aren't going to be made about release until maybe a hearing that morning or a hearing the following afternoon? So and then looking at booking numbers throughout the 7 days a week and on the 24-hour time clock never really made a whole lot of sense, I guess, in Spokane County. So that's where we're at on that one. And then the diversion and alternative programs for low-level and first-time arrests. We did launch what was originally called the felony diversion program, which is now called felony deferred, and that's operating. We've made some attempts to get it closer to more of a fast track model, but that's kind of a team effort and a team approach. And if I was going to say anything about moving forward, that if there were resources for that to kind of develop more of a solid team, with enough staffing for all the entities that are moving towards that common goal, that would be something great. I noticed that ECR is on the agenda for today. Maybe that would tie in with that as well. Those timely hearings for the low-level people, but I think we have to recognize too that we don't have all those felony level drug cases that we once did in ECR back in the day. So things have kind of changed, but that's we have more capacity for our felony deferred program. So that's what I got for you today.
Perfect job, Cheryl. If you could reduce that to writing, I'd be in great shape. That's exactly what I want. Because it kind of gives an explanation to it, and I have something I can operate with when I meet with them again. So, okay. Any other comments? And John, is John still on here? John, yeah, John. I think we evaluated that lead program, and I don't think it was something that we felt was going to move forward in Spokane. If I remember correctly, I think Ozzy did a pretty in-depth look at that. So maybe if we have the notes on that, because I know that was one that Jim McDivitt had put out, that he thought there was going to fly, you work here. And that's the kind of things I'm talking about. I know Ozzy already looked into that, and so just
Okay.
where we're at on it. So how about from the courts? Anything from the courts?
No, this is my first meeting back in quite a while, taking over for Judge Maurer as presiding. So I'm just kind of sitting back and taking it in today.
Yeah.
But I am quite familiar with the blueprint for reform. And, I agree as far as going back to each, section themselves, and we can work through our own list and then report back.
Okay. And I think that's a good strategy. And I don't know if Don Hooper's on here, but go ahead, Judge McKay.
And I'll apologize. I came off a docket out of juvenile and did not get here until when I just popped in. So I have no idea what has been talked about before getting here. And I have some notes on the blueprint for reform, but I have no idea how to even put that in cohesive thought for the group right now. Okay.
And that's what I thought. I mean, you guys have only had it for a short while. I didn't expect everybody to have. And if you look, Cheryl only has 3 things and all the rest of us have a ton more than that, I'm just saying. But anyway, I didn't expect everybody to have it today. I just wanted to give this direction where we're headed. The board is headed, what we're going to work on, kind of a moving forward. And then yesterday, the Board of County Commissioners signed a resolution naming Pioneer Human Services as the provider for the supported release program. So I will start working with them and working with district court to start working on that coming together along with Colin and the other ones that are involved with it. So can expect that to be coming forward. And really, I kind of apologize, but there was a lot of things that weren't completed yet. After Maggie departed, and it's not an excuse, but there's some things I had to get done before the end of the year, and supported release was one of them. It was either give the funds back to the MacArthur Foundation or approach them with the supported release and then maintain the funds to operate the supported release until the funds are expended. And so they did allow us to have a no cost extension into 2024. So all things are looking pretty good for that program. We just need to get it kicked off. And then I probably will meet with the district court and with public defenders to take next steps forward. What do we do now? How are we going to place this together? We have a scope of work. We have the RFP to operate off, and we'll get you a copy of that if you don't have a copy of that already. And then it's just next step forward on what we're going to do with that part of it so we can get it kicked off and get it rolling. I think that we just take this body of work back, unless you have anything else. I mean, really, I don't know why these meetings are an hour and a half, unless we really have some spirited conversation to go into this thing. And then, the other thing I would say too, is that if it doesn't apply to you, don't feel like it's, you have to stay with the script. If you have some other input, and I'm kind of thinking of John and some of the others that you would like to have, from the community involvement in that portion of it, feel free to come back with those things kind of too, and we can review those. And then we'll also review the efforts that were made at the beginning of it before it shifted gears to the supported release. We'll take a look at those too, Tori, to make sure that we're not missing something and get those back out in front of us. So, all right. Any other comments? So we can all stare at each other for the next hour and a half or 45 minutes or whatever, or we
So
can.
Mike,
Yes.
you did have ECR on the agenda. Do you have?
Yeah, I just brought it up, but on the ECR, it's one of those conversations that repeatedly comes up. So I'd really like to have an opportunity to sit down with the prosecutors and the public defenders just to kind of noodle our way through that, so that I have a reasonable explanation of, some of the challenges that are going with it. And I think that the Blake decision had a lot to do with it, because I think those were kind of the meat and potatoes of that program, but I don't know that for sure. So I'd really like to sit down with you all and talk through that process. So, okay. Well, having said that, everybody's got their homework, and I'll see you guys at the next meeting. And Have a good weekend or a good week, I guess.
Hey, Mike, what's the date of our next scheduled meeting?
Karen?
Maybe Karen has that on her calendar,
Yeah, it's February 8th.
February 8th. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, you guys have a good day.